too long. I mean a day too long. You had me ripe and ready to pick you for my steady, and then you stayed away too long. You made a big mistake. I made a big mistake. You let the fire smolder as I was growing older, and then you stayed away too long.
But did I really stay away too long? I was off all last week. You know, that day when you come back from a really nice vacation, I was up in Truro on Cape Cod, in the Outer Cape. And you know, there is something just wonderful about a vacation where you get up every morning and you know you're going to spend most of your waking hours, you know, just in a t-shirt, either sandals or bare feet. And almost nobody wears pants on Truro after Labor Day. That's barely even a thing, you know, which is actually what they say to me when I don't wear pants. But that's another story. We're going to take some calls today. We got some already. It's Ask or Tell Me Anything. There are no guests. You are going to decide what's important to talk about, or perhaps more relevantly, what's unimportant. What's unimportant to talk about, because we do take calls about unimportant things. We're not prejudiced towards importance. So whichever way you want to take it, it's 888-720-9677. If that sounds like a lot of numbers to you, first of all, it's because it's a phone number, but that's why they call it a phone number. But you could also dial it as 888-720-WNPR. Don't say we don't give you lots of choices. And today, we have a special celebrity call screener, and that would be Robin Doyon-Aiken. You'll have a brush with greatness. But don't be asking her about problems you're having with your beef bourguignon recipe, all right? I need this thing to flow, all right? Don't get tied up discussing your cooking problems with Robin. That's not what's happening here. All right, let's do a little bit of this so-called format. And we're going to start out with the inimitable Eric from Cheshire. Hello, there you are, Eric. What do you have on your mind?
Colin, I'm calling about one of your podcasts, which was about praying mantises and the Connecticut state motto, because this is the time of year when the mantises produce their egg masses. So we tend to see quite a few of them around this time of year. But over the last week, I've been observing a female Chinese mantis in my little garden plot on the south side of my apartment. And it has only one front leg. Its right front leg has been severed, so it only has its left front leg. But despite that, I've observed it capturing. It's demonstrated that it's very capable of snatching skipper butterflies off my red clover flower head. And those butterflies move very quickly, and they're very hyper. So she's been able to feed herself, and on September 12th, I noticed a male in the garden that mated with her and then left. But I've been observing her extensively and taking photographs and videos, and including in my observations are the way that she moves her mouth parts when she's feeding, and sometimes I actually hand feed her house crickets that I'm feeding to my pet spiders, and also the way she moves around the garden throughout the day and night, and the way she positions herself in relation to the position of the sun. But with regards to the state motto, I would think that a more suitable motto would be connected with the attributes, the positive attributes of the mantis.
Well, now we have to say that the state motto, of course, was created or foisted upon us, or however we want to think about this, long before the praying mantis was understood to be our state insect. And so this, just for people who are just kind of tuning into this whole question, so the state motto of Connecticut, which is rendered in Latin, means essentially, he who transplanted us sustains us, he being God in this situation. And, and I don't know. I mean, it is a praying mantis after all. I know it's the other kind of praying. But so I don't know. First of all, I have some questions about, there's something a little bit voyeuristic about this whole thing, or a little bit Jimmy Stewart Rear Window. Like, you're really, are you getting HIPAA waivers from this mantis? You seem to be really kind of invading her privacy.
No, I'm just, I'm an amateur naturalist.
That's what they all say when the cops show up.
Well, I am seriously. I am like, you went to Rhode Island for your vacation. I spend my time right around my home here in Cheshire. So observing things, and there's an incredible number of things to observe, and I photograph, and again, I photograph and videotape and share my observations with other people.
Well, in that case, so I have to say, I have two pieces of mantis news. I mean, you sound like you're very much up on the whole mantis world. One of them is that they've discovered a new species of mantis in Arizona. It's called the Sonoran tiger mantis. And the other piece of news is, because of the unusual sort of visual qualities of the mantis, that the way that it can detect movement, the way that it's got the kind of binocular style overlapping fields of vision, and all kinds of other stuff that I've already forgotten, they're actually using some of the mantis's visual qualities to help, I think, with self-driving cars, to pick up things that self-driving cars need to be able to see. So, Eric, first of all, it has been a joy to talk to you. However, I believe we have to move on just because there are a lot of people waiting to get on the air here, and time is precious. We're going to go right down the row here. Our next person is Tom in Manchester. Hi, Tom. Tom, you have the floor right now.
Well, sure.
There you go.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, two things. One was upsetting news, what happened to Haitian people with
Yes.
a dog comment, and I think as a person of color, you do feel offended because Haitian deals with our history going back to the St. Overture. I think we occupied Haiti for 15 years during the 20th century for a little while, Papa Doc in the street, but also with the turmoil that's going on. I hate to see that, but they are contributing people in our country here in business, arts, and even the spokesperson for President the Biden administration is Haitian. So it's very insulting from the Mr. Vance's comments and Mr. Trump, that type of xenophobic racism, and people in the Caribbean have contributed in different ways, and what he called S-hole countries at one time. Former President Trump. Another one is Hispanic Heritage Month. I was reading a good article in USA Today and dealt with that for the month, and coming from different countries. They're not all criminals south of the border. Some have, they were here before the Anglos, and made settlements, and some of them mixed race, mestizos, and they've contributed to many different areas in defending this country. And I think the poet laureate now, Miss Limon, for the United States is I think Mexican of Latina heritage. So I'd like to say we just need to on the positive part of persons of color that contribute. We're not committing crimes, and not going to be used as tropes either. We can think for ourselves, and that at the point right now we should be pulling together, especially with that Ku Klux Klan, gentleman in Ku Klux Klan regalia. I guess in Friday's Current was down in Mystic at a Republican rally for Trump last Thursday.
Tom, I also want to say about Ohio. One of the other things that's happening there is they've had to evacuate elementary schools,
right? Yeah,
because of threats, and they've now essentially shut down the college campus there too, or at least made it virtual only, which is just insane. And yeah, I mean, as you speak, Tom, what I hear from you is that for most of my lifetime, the understanding was that the predominant immigrant story, the prevailing immigrant story of America, was of America being a melting pot where people came and had opportunities that wouldn't have been possible where they were from, and made the most of those opportunities when they could, and when they didn't have great opportunities, their backs built a lot of the infrastructure of this country, and then helped maintain it too. And that the idea that there was any kind of threat posed, I mean, it was there as low-level narrative. You can go back to Sacco and Vanzetti and stuff like that. But it was that, the 80% of the narrative was the strength that the American alloy has from being a melting pot of different cultures. And 20% of it was, well, maybe there's some people who shouldn't be here. And I think Trump and other nativists have kind of stood that on its head. And said, 80% of the conversation should be about murderers and rapists and insane, horrible people coming here.
Or the Project 2025, 25, and also getting away with DEI initiatives like it's supposed to be not too American when you're still unpleasant parts of our history. And I've tried to do my part in Manchester with all the 30 years of bringing it, and I've gotten good thanks and even a plaque about that about 15 years ago. So I try to look at it being half full, not half empty.
Exactly.
And that mixed race families are here to stay. And my late mother was from Bermuda, and an immigrant, and that plays in part of our U.S. history as well. So we're all in this together, and not to forget indigenous tribes here in Connecticut. And throughout the year, they were here first, and they were kind of pushed to the side too. And I'm glad they're coming back in different ways. So
Tom, you're expressing this
America for all Americans, but in a positive way.
You're expressing this so beautifully, Tom, and I thank you so much for your call. I couldn't agree with you more. All right, let's go to Anthony in New Haven. Let me give out the number again, 888-720-9677. If you're unfamiliar with this format, we don't book any guests. It's just callers telling me what they think is important to talk about or entertainingly unimportant to talk about. 888-720-WNPR. And here is frequent caller Anthony from New Haven. Hi, Anthony.
Hey, Colin. So 3 weeks ago, I called in asking about the value of celebrity endorsements for office. The specific person at the time being the head coach of the Golden State Warriors. Mm-hmm. And I think we came to the conclusion that they don't really have much impact in terms of getting new people to vote or switching people's allegiances. They may have some impact on sort of energizing the base, but we didn't think that they had really a significant impact. But as you may know, a certain pop celebrity, one of the most famous people in the world, recently endorsed Kamala Harris, that being Taylor Swift.
Oh, I was going to say, I wasn't aware that Wayne Newton had endorsed anybody. Anyway, continue.
Well, that's another
conversation. All right. Yeah.
Yes. So my understanding is that more than 400,000 people visited change.org,
yep.
I guess exploring the idea of registering to vote, and that at least 35,000 people have registered to vote because of her. Who knows how accurate that number is. Maybe it'll grow. Anyway, so my question is, do we need to revise or qualify our conclusion that celebrities have no impact, especially given that we've seen time and again that the normal rules of gravity do not apply to Taylor Swift? Case in point, her single-handedly increasing the NFL salary cap, which is absolutely insane. So I leave it to you to start in terms of where we go with our assessment.
Yeah, no, I think you legitimately raise a really interesting point. And I had the same reaction that you did when you start to see this bump in registration or just even a bump in sort of curious visits to registration-oriented sites. That's a material change. That's a potential material change. And some of the swing states, you're already starting to see at least, numbers in the thousands of new registrations that seem to be driven by Taylor Swift or seem to be inspired by Taylor Swift. And to me, that's different. I think, first of all, what she has done has been very effective, and the way that she's kind of worded it has been very effective. She's obviously has now endorsed Harris, but she's been talking about voter registration for a long time. And I think it's even kind of clear that she's almost more interested in that, or she's been more consistently and perennially interested in making sure that her fans, most of whom are young women, are registered to vote. And then, if they're registered to vote, it'd be great if they voted for Harris. But that seemed to almost come second. And I think that's really smart. And I do think that she will have an impact on this. And obviously, and I don't know whether we said this during the Steve Kerr conversation, but, in these states like Wisconsin, or Pennsylvania. Some of these, Wisconsin's like 20,000 votes every time. It's a 20,000 vote margin. So you have to change, 10,001 votes or create 20,000 new voters where there were none. All of that seems very doable. And so, yeah, I wouldn't write this thing off at all. I think that she will have an impact. I think Trump did a very stupid thing by saying, by truthing or whatever it is that he does, that he hates her, which is just, you've already got a problem that Taylor Swift likes somebody better than she likes you. And then you say you hate her. First of all, you're kind of playing into a Taylor Swift song narrative. And Taylor Swift always wins in those songs. Even if she seems unlucky in love, she's always kind of the victor in one way or another. So it's kind of like he didn't even really read the room very well. And like a smarter thing to do would have been maybe to say something like, well, nothing can dampen my affection for the song All Too Well. Or something. He should have had some young staffer write this thing for him and have it be somewhat conciliatory. But he doesn't do conciliatory. So he's just got a whole bunch of people who maybe they were kind of curious about it getting registered. Right? Saying I hate Taylor Swift is to effectively going to make sure a lot of those people who might have been a little bit casual about it are now absolutely going to get freaking registered. So I don't know how that was smart.
Well, I totally agree with you. If he had done otherwise, though, he would be a different person. I would also just note that, my understanding is that Trump and Harris are really gunning for Pennsylvania, and that Pennsylvania can really decide the outcome given the sort of combination of electoral votes that are needed. And Taylor Swift is from Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. So, even a few thousand new registrations there could potentially make the difference.
Oh, yeah. And, they're bringing a lot of forces to bear on Pennsylvania. And Walz has been cruising around in some of the places that people don't go, just like, Lancaster County and places like that, where they're not big urban centers, but he's reaching out to some of the more rural voters, some of the people in small towns. Josh Shapiro, maybe he should have been the running mate, but he's going to be a really good asset to them in Pennsylvania no matter what. It's clear to me now that people in Pennsylvania, they really love Josh Shapiro. Even a lot of Republicans in Pennsylvania love Josh Shapiro. So, they've got a lot of ways to kind of help them win. And you're right. I hadn't really thought about her being from there, but it's a great point, Anthony. As usual, Anthony, and thank you so much for your call. We should probably take a break. But we've got lots of interesting callers here. John, Mike, Russell, Diane. We will talk to them when we come back. The numbers are 888-720-9677. There's only really one number. 888-720-WNPR. We'll be back.
It's just a bad movie where there's no crying. Handing the keys to me in this red lion. In the slot that you sliced through the seam, there was no shyness. In the plot that you passed through your teeth, there was no pity, no fading. Film begins on a kid in a big city, and no cut to a costly parade that's for him only. No dissolve to a sliver of prey that's his new. Just like grain on the flickering pain of some great movie. Hey, watch it! shame, shame, shame. Shame, shame, shame on you. Every place.
All right, we got to get back to work here, if you can call this work. The number's 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. And let's go to Mary Jo in Milford. Mary Jo, you have the floor.
Hi, Colin. How are you?
Just fine.
Thanks for taking my call. I'm calling about the political violence that's occurring in the wake of that has been occurring. When people are talking about the latest attempt on Trump's life, they end up saying, well, there's violence on both sides. First of all, I don't see the violence on the other side. They presume that the two men were probably in favor of Harris, but my understanding they were Trump supporters at one time. And the other problem is people don't recognize that Trump has created much of this violent culture, and he should be held responsible for it. I'm not saying anybody should go after him, but he foisters all this anger and hatred and violence, and particularly the latest thing in Springfield is just atrocious.
Yeah.
J.D. Vance said on the morning talk shows yesterday that if he had to create a situation when he couldn't be pinned down because there's no evidence, he had to create a story to bring the problem of immigration to the media. He did it. So he's admitting that it wasn't a true story.
Yeah.
And the facts aren't even correct.
Right. I feel like that ship sailed a long time ago. It probably goes back to the years of George W. Bush and the famous line that we've been quoting a bit lately, that Karl Rove said, that the journalists still belong to the reality-based community, as though that were kind of an outdated thing. And you're almost quoting word for word what I posted on the Facebookings earlier today. Look, we have entered an age in which public figures have way higher threat levels. And so prosecutors and judges, especially the ones who have dealt with Trump-related court cases, they've had to get protection. They've had to have security details. So do public health officials. Anthony Fauci will probably spend the rest of his life with a security detail, watching over him. And this is all, Trump is not the only causation of this, but he is a fanner of those flames. We were getting a crazier and more violent society when he arrived on the scene. That's why he was so readily embraced. And he's done nothing to turn down the heat. And he's had plenty of chances to do that. So I share your sense. Look, it's never okay to point a gun at anybody with the intention of committing violence. It just, so pointing a gun at him is as bad as pointing a gun at anybody else. But to your earlier point, it's really a mistake to draw much of any conclusion from lone gunmen. Lone gunman, the term kind of explains itself. Every lone gunman is an N of one. He's usually he's not really meaningful in terms of some larger movement. But you're also correct to say the climate, which Trump deplores only when the violence is directed at him, the climate is something of his creation. He helped create a world where more guns get pointed at people more often. So, yeah, I totally agree, Mary Jo.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I'm in good company.
Well, I don't know about that, but we agree anyway. I don't know about you're in good company, but we agree. All right, let's go to Russell and then Diane. We got John, we got Mike. We got a lot of things to talk about here. So let's start with Russell. Russell, you have the floor.
Okay. Well, Colin, you and I are the same age, basically. So we both grew up and pretty much became sentient at the same time the Beatles came to us, and they've been part of our lives. I mean, they created the soundtrack. Their music was imprinted on us early, like millions and millions of people. And so we all love them and we cherish them. And yet I'm troubled. I'm troubled with what I think is Paul McCartney, almost in a desperate acts, to, I don't know, create or affect or keep his legacy alive forever and ever through various things he's done of late, such as, the lyrics book, the recasting of the movie, Get Back, taking Lennon's name off of some of the records I think he did, all these interviews to go over how he thought about things, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, it seems to me, or it's occurring to me, that it's a little unseemly and it's tarnishing his image in my view. What do you think?
Look, first of all, rock and roll stars, as they grow older, they tend not to grow older gracefully. And of course, somebody like Paul, who was just the absolute epitome of relevance in the 60s and 70s, is less and less relevant with each passing year. And he's not without flaws. None of us is. I don't think he's done anything. I mean, look, I love jazz standards. I love the American Songbook. But whenever somebody like Paul put out Kisses on the Bottom, I thought, I really don't want to hear that. Because the people who do stuff like that. And Paul, I massive respect for Paul's understanding of older music. The reason that he wrote some of the songs that he wrote was very much because of his roots in the kind of 50s music hall sound that that the older generation brought to him and that he paid attention to. It's not that he's a dilettante or a parvenu about stuff like that. It just never really quite sounds right when these rock voices try to tackle this stuff. I mean, Linda Ronstadt might be one of the lone exceptions, but when I hear, Rod Stewart singing Gershwin or something, I just want to cut my ear off or something.
He needs to do this. Rod Stewart needs to do this. But Paul, Kisses on the Bottom, I get you, but I take that to be kind of a tip of the hat to his
I don't think Rod Stewart's shopping at thrift stores or anything. I think he's probably fine. But yeah, so I don't know. Look, they're going to make mistakes. And certainly there was a documentary after 9/11 about the concert that Paul organized. And he'd written a song, the sort of post 9/11 song. I have no idea I guarantee you it had the word freedom in it, but other than that, I don't know what the song was. But what I remember about it was that it wasn't a very good song, as these songs tend to be, not very good. And he was like, there's one scene in this documentary where he goes up to, I think, Eric Clapton and tells him the guitar solo he thinks Eric Clapton should play. And he's going to go, so you could start a bit like, and Eric Clapton is going, I think I know how to play a guitar solo. Thank you very much. But I think also, let's remember Paul at his pinnacle, because he brought us so much joy. And, watching him drag around and maybe make some mistakes and not necessarily cover himself with glory, I don't know. Russell?
Well, he's making that a little harder is what I'm saying. Yeah. Shine is coming off of that. And I'm to the point where I don't even want to watch this stuff, because I just don't want to see him do this to himself. I mean, anybody else maybe, but Paul McCartney.
I know. I feel you. But wait till I'm that old. I'm going to be a public embarrassment, and that's a promise. All right, where was I going to go next? I think Diane from Willimantic has been waiting quite a while, so let's get to Diane. Hi, Diane. You're on the air.
Yes. Thank you. I think these are national financial issues for any of your programs to discuss. Bring back the CCC concept for affordable housing, put people who are unemployed on federal money into a work program to get affordable housing in this nation.
Are you talking like CCC, it's like CCC like the CCC like the New Deal CCC? That CCC?
It was the old conservation. They would restore national parks. We need housing now, not national parks. The concept.
Yeah.
The other one is child and elder care courses in every high school in this country. Those jobs are needed. Those people could be employed immediately. It should be a course in high schools, every high school. And also Spanish taught in every elementary school. It's our country's second language, and that's when kids learn it, when they're young.
Are you running for something? Because you sound like you've got some really good planks to your platform. I'd vote for you.
No. I'm running for president, yes. I think your listeners should have some input to all of these programs.
Yeah, the last one is going to be
important concept.
The last one is going to be a firecracker, particularly in some parts of the country. If you make it a requirement,
I'm sure
that public schools teach Spanish, that's going to light a fuse, and it may be hard to put out. And you have to decide with that one: is the juice worth the squeeze?
Okay. People would be twice as likely to be employed if they are bilingual, specifically in Spanish.
I hear you. I mean, I'm not saying I oppose it. I'm saying with any kind of politically volatile question or place, instances where there will be a lot of pushback, you have to ask yourself, is the juice worth the squeeze? And maybe it is. Maybe it is worth whatever you have to go through to get to it. All right. I've lost track of whose turn it might be. But I'll just guess that maybe it's Mike. Mike from Woodbury, you get the floor.
Hi, Colin. So I was somewhat shocked, although maybe shocked is too strong a word considering other things that are going on in the country right now, but at least surprised by this U.S. News and World Report, most expensive places to live in the United States. Hartford is number 1, and New Haven is number 3 after New York, and then followed by Miami and Los Angeles. I mean, that is amazing to me. And I guess it's because, many people spend more than 30% of their income on housing. Plus, apparently goods and services are more expensive in those cities than anywhere else. I mean, that's not a great look for Connecticut. I'm hoping that the governor of Lamont and the mayors of these cities are going to try to do something. I don't know what they can do, but I
think with that thing, it's kind of I feel like these kinds of magazine lists are a little bit misleading because they're so context free. Now, the reason that Hartford is number 1 is because people are so poor in Hartford. It's not because housing is so expensive. It's because people are incredibly poor. There have been times where Hartford and Brownsville, Texas were going neck and neck, for the poorest city in America. And the reason that Hartford is so poor is because it's a geographical fiction. It's 16.5 square miles, which is tiny. I mean, you could probably put, 10 Hartfords inside Atlanta or something. I'm making that up. I have no idea if that's true. But Hartford, it's a tiny little place, even compared to there are Connecticut towns that are 50 square miles. Hartford is 16.5, 16, something like that square miles. And it is essentially a wild game preserve for poverty. It is a cordoning off of a largely impoverished population who don't have, that's what all these lawsuits were essentially about. All the educational lawsuits, like Sheff versus O'Neill, were about the isolation of an impoverished population without the kind of access to education or other benefits that help people get ahead. Now, if you really realistically define this area, if the city of Hartford included West Hartford, East Hartford, Bloomfield, Windsor, Wethersfield, and Newington, it wouldn't be where it is on the U.S. News and World Report list. It wouldn't be the most expensive place in America because there'd be people with incomes that would allow them to get. Now, obviously, the house prices would go up if you add in, Simsbury or something. But I think that list is fictional. I think the only thing that it really says to me is Hartford's still really poor.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's all I'm thinking. Yeah, it's not a great look, but a lot of things are not great looks. All right, I don't even know what that means. Let me take one more call. No, you know what? We'll go to a break. We'll go to a break right now, but we have some open lines. So it's 888-720-9677. I'm laughing about something that I may tell you about later. 888-720-WNPR.
All episodes of The Colin McEnroe Show are available 24/7 at ctpublic.org/Colin, which is also where you can sign up for our delightful free fortnightly newsletter, The Noseletter. You can listen to any episode on any podcast app, Have a question or comment? Email us at collinshow@ctpublic.org. Now, back to the show.
The voice of the great Sabrina Herrera. Wow. Actually, the newsletter is now kind of more like monthly, I think. But you should still sign up for it. Or not. So time to say some thank yous. The maestro, Dylan Reyes, is our technical producer today. And, Brush with Greatness, Robin Doyen-Aiken is kind of producing this show and screening calls and stuff. And it's a team effort is what I'm saying, really, because Dylan did a lot of the pre-production work today, too, and Robin's screening calls. And Lily Tyson is out in the newsroom buying Powerball tickets or something. I don't know who's doing what exactly, but we definitely do need to win Powerball in order to continue. All right, so the numbers are 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. And I have such a good story to tell, but I think I'm going to wait. I think I'm not going to tell it today because it's a developing story. It's something that's happening at my house that I'm pretty excited about. Let's go to Linda in Simsbury. Hi, Linda. You have the floor.
Hi, Colin. I heard you say you were out in Truro, and I had been out to Provincetown maybe 2 weeks ago, and it reminded me of I had read the book Helltown about the serial murders in 1969. Have you read the book?
I have not.
Sherman?
No.
It's fascinating. I'm not into real life murder.
No, well, thank God for that.
No, I mean as entertainment.
Oh, I see.
What grabbed me about this book was the history that was happening and who was involved in writing it up and covering it. Norman Mailer, Kurt Vonnegut, and then the DA, and it's before cell phones. So, like the local police in Provincetown kind of didn't connect with the Truro police, didn't connect with Boston, and they would have to drive, to Boston sometimes. But the way that the author brought together the local goings on, it just begs to have like a walking tour.
Yeah, or a Netflix, 5-part series. I think we should pitch it. Let's pitch it. We should be pitching a series right now, Linda. Everybody else is pitching a series. Why aren't you and I pitching the Helltown series, late 1960s? We could get Ed Asner to play Norman Mailer. Ed Asner's still alive, isn't he? Yeah, I think he is.
I want you to throw out to your creative audience to offer walking tours. Like I wanted to see where Norman Mailer lived.
Yes, there is like a Dune tour where they there is one of the tours they do show you where Norman Mailer lived.
And Kurt Vonnegut, and then I think Norman Mailer ran for mayor of New York or on the ticket. I mean, out of the notoriety that he got.
Well, I
was young in 1969, but I was really aware of everything. And this book made it so rich. What was happening in that little teeny town, and out of these two murders, and then the national coverage of it, Life magazine, on the news.
Linda, I'm going to check out this book. I absolutely am. Helltown, about the 1969. I mean, I don't like to read something like that while I'm on vacation in that place. I want there to be happiness in the place where I'm having vacations. I don't want people getting killed there, even historically. But maybe now I'm in the mood to do it. I also would like to say I have this odd habit, and then we're about to get to Cheryl in 2 seconds. But I have this odd habit. It's been years since I had a local barber that I went to every single time I needed a haircut. I don't know why. It's like a very special relationship. And you either have that relationship or you don't. And as a result, I've gotten my haircut I just got my haircut in Provincetown several days ago. And I think it's a very nice haircut. I said to the guy, whose name was Anthony, cutting my hair, I said, it's going to be a problem if this is a really good haircut because I live in Hartford and I just feel like coming back up here to get my haircut is not going to really work. And it's been an even bigger problem. I got a haircut in Souillac, France, which is a tiny little village in the Dordogne area. I've gotten my haircut twice in Italy, in Lucca and in Rome. And you just don't if you got a great haircut, you just don't get back to those places. You just don't. Oh, I've gotten my haircut in San Francisco. I don't know I've got my haircut in Belfast. So in a way, the Provincetown haircut was one of the most local haircuts I've ever received. This story has no point to it, but I'm just sort of saying it's a little thing going on in my life. All right, here's Cheryl in Plantsville, Connecticut. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Colin. I have a quick question, a what-if question. What if former President Trump was actually assassinated? Where would the election go? Would they have to re-elect to assume that Vance would become president? Or
First of all, let's hope that never happens. Let's hope that this is a total hypothetical that we never have to face, because we don't want anything like that happening.
Exactly.
So there's no convention. I'm assuming that there are party rules. And this is kind of thing that I probably knew at some point, but over the years it hasn't stayed in my head. So, nominees are the creation of parties. They're not the creation of federal election law. So I'm assuming that there are party rules for replacing a deceased or departed candidate on the ticket. I don't think Vance would necessarily immediately become the nominee, unless that's what the rule is. But no, the election wouldn't be over. The Republicans would field a nominee. Now, it would be a big problem because there are ballots that have been printed that have Trump's name on them. There are going to be election delays anyway. We're not probably going to have a verdict on election day or by midnight on election night, particularly because of Pennsylvania not opening the mail ballots until that morning. It'll be a while before, but this would be a big monkey wrench obviously it would be a big monkey wrench in a lot of ways, but
probably for each state.
Probably what?
Probably for each state.
For each state, yeah. But there would be ballot problems right away. There are printed ballots right now, and early voting has actually started to occur in some places as well. So, the longer that goes, and you have, and maybe at that point you do get into federal election law issues. In other words, nominees are the creations of their parties, but we now have an election that's going on.
I know, right.
So it gets even more complicated because, now you have federal election law. This is, I think, a little bit above my pay grade. So I'm going to stop babbling.
It's never happened before.
I don't think,
like you said, it's a party thing.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever happened that close to election day, and of course, early voting is a fairly new animal. So, it would be a dreadful thing, and we hope it doesn't happen. But it's an interesting question as well. So, anyway, I'm gonna thank you very much for calling, and so we have open lines right now. If anybody wants to call, the numbers are there is only one number. I've got to stop saying that. 888-720-9677. So 888-720-WNPR. So I'm going to violate my own privacy while I'm waiting to see if anybody else calls in here at the end of the show. I'm going to violate my own privacy. And so, so we had this situation in our house where, how can I put this delicately? There is no way to put it delicately. So there was some kind of animal droppings in our house. And they were a little odd looking. And so we called a local pest control company, and they came in today. The guy came in today, and he looked at the droppings. We had sort of saved these droppings, as valuable family keepsakes, but mainly to show other professionals who might be coming in. We had saved these droppings, and he looked at them, and he said, "I don't know what those are, but it's not something we handle. And so you're going to need somebody, a specialist in wildlife control." And so we pressed him a little bit about that. He said, "Look, it's just something that shouldn't be in here." And I felt a little bit like Ellen Burstyn at a certain point in The Exorcist, where she realizes that most of the clinicians are not going to be able to help her daughter. It's like, really? We have to call Father Marin to come in about these droppings? We need a turd exorcism. It just doesn't seem right somehow. But anyway, just in that moment, I thought, well, I'm not, what if it's a bat? What if it's a gigantic anaconda that's living inside the walls? Something is pooping in our house, and it's not supposed to be there. So I called a wildlife control person, a private company, and they came immediately, and it's a shrew, And apparently they are almost impossible to tame. No matter what you've heard, no matter what you might have absorbed in English class, taming a shrew is actually very difficult. So we are going to have to take more drastic notions and more drastic actions. But it's been a really exciting day, and at a certain point we're thinking bat, we're thinking opossum, we're thinking some kind of pretty exciting big animal, because these were, not to get too graphic, but these were larger than usual items. Anyway, it's a shrew. It's kind of a letdown a little bit, to tell you the truth. I was kind of I wanted something Tolkien. I wanted a Balrog or something, and I got a shrew. All right, so let's go to... Oh, here's Suzanne in Mystic. We'll try to get you on. We've got about 2 minutes left. Hi, Suzanne.
Oh, ow!
Ah, what's happened? Did a shrew bite you? It sounds like a shrew. A shrew just bit you.
No, I just slammed the door in my hand. But thank you. That's how much I love you.
Okay.
Anyway, so my question is, Suzanne from Mystic and West Hartford, go KO.
Okay.
All right. And then, so the separation between church and state, like, what happened to that? Like, why do we not have that? What happened to, and I don't like, I went to initially the one site that was like United Citizens United. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's bad.
Yeah. You don't want to go to Citizens United. That's the wrong one. So, I mean, just to be clear about one thing, separation of church and state is not actually the language of the Constitution. It's a language from a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote to local Angle here, I believe the Baptists of Danbury, and because in fact Connecticut was probably the last state in the Union to have a state religion. Congregationalism, more or less, was our state religion, official state religion in Connecticut, well after the adoption of the U.S. Constitution. So what the Establishment Clause says, in other words, what it says in the Bill of Rights is Congress shall make no law establishing a religion. In other words, there can't be a state religion, which is a little bit different from separation of church and state. I mean, they are essentially the same idea, but it's not true that, we've always had presidents who've used religious language to describe what they're doing and why they're doing it. We've never elected a president who wasn't a Christian. And it's always probably good. It's going to be that way for a really long time. So this is a longer conversation for you and me to have. I think you may have been bitten by a wyvern. I don't think it was a door. I think it was either a wyvern or a shrew that bit you. But please be safe out there. And I don't know what else to say other than thank you so much for listening today and for asking and telling.